Before I tell you this story, I need you to ask yourself one question. What would you do if the person who was supposed to protect you was the one who destroyed you? Not a stranger, not an enemy, your own mother. This is the story of Amma, a girl born with a gift so rare. The elder said the gods themselves had kissed her forehead at birth, but her mother saw that gift differently. She didn't see a blessing, she saw a price tag. Stay with me, because by the end of this story, you will never look at sacrifice or betrayal the same way again. Deep in the forest valley of what is now Ghana, nestland between the Ofen River and the ancient seal cotton trees, there was a village called Nkabom, which is Akan, meaning unity. But like many things named for what they lack, Nkabom was a village quietly torn apart by one thing above all else: poverty. The rains had been cruel for 3 seasons. The yam fields cracked like old pottery. The market women sat behind empty baskets, fanning themselves in heat, hoping someone would come who still had cowrie shells to spend. It was the kind of poverty that doesn't shout, it whispers. It creeps into homes at night and steals your dignity before morning. And it was in this village, in this hunger, that Amma was born. The night she came into the world, the village diviner looked at the stars and said, "This child carries light in her hands. Whatever she touches, she will make whole." The village rejoiced. Her mother Abena smiled. But even then, even in that moment of joy, something behind Abena's eyes was already calculating. Amma grew up in the way wildflowers grew, not because anyone tended her, but because her nature demanded it. By the age of 7, she could weave neat strips, more precise than women 3 times her age. The pattern she created seemed to tell stories on their own. Hunters and weavers, and ancestral spirits all caught in thread. By 10, the traders from Kumasi would pass through Nkabam specifically to buy Amma's clothes. They said wearing it feels like wearing a prayer. Amma herself was quiet, humble. She had her father's gentle eyes, God rest him. He had passed when she was only 4, and she had her grandmother's laugh, which came rarely but shook the whole room when it did. She didn't know she was exceptional. She thought everyone saw her color the way she did, in layers like music. She thought everyone's fingers knew the loom like an old friend. She didn't know, and her mother made sure she never found out, because Abena had a plan, and in that plan, Abena's gift was not hers to keep. When Abena turned 15, a man came to their compound. His name was Kofi Mensah. He was 43 years old, 3 times widow, and the wealthiest trader between Nkabom and the coast. He smelled of palm oil and old money. His teeth were red from too much kola nut, and his eyes moved across Amma like she was a bolt of clothes he was considering buying. Amma did not like him. She told her mother this plainly, the way a child still trusts that the mother will listen. "Mama, something about this man feels wrong. His smile doesn't reach his eyes." Abena clicked her tongue. "You are a child. What do you know about men and what their eyes do?" "Mama, I don't want to marry him." "Want?" Abena laughed. But it was not her grandmother's laugh. It was a thin and sharp like a blade. "Amma, when you are hungry, does your stomach ask you what you want? No, it takes what is given." That night, Amma listened through the thin walls of their mud house as her mother negotiated her bride price with Kofi Mensah. She heard numbers, she heard clink of coins, and she heard her mother say in a voice so calm it broke something in Amma forever, "She weaves beautifully. She will be useful to you. Not she is my daughter, not she deserves love and kindness. She will be useful to you." Amma pressed her hand to her mouth to stop the sound from coming out. She had just learned the cost of herself. Word spread quickly in Ankabam, the way all painful things do. The elder women shook their heads but said nothing. In those days, in that place, a mother's authority over a daughter was not questioned openly. But Ama's childhood friend, a boy named Kweko, the blacksmith's son, he could not stay silent. Kweko had grown up beside Ama. He had watched her fingers dance across the loom. He had been the first person to tell her earnestly at age 9, Ama, you are going to be famous one day. The whole world will know your name. He went to Abena himself. Auntie, there is a weaving school in Kumasi. A woman named Mam Akoswa runs it. She is training girls like Ama, giving them their own trade, their own income. Ama could go. She could become somebody. Abena listened politely. Then she said, Kweko, go home. Mind your father's forge. But auntie, I said go home. Kweko came to find Ama in the field that evening. His eyes were red. Ama, you have to fight this. Run if you have to. Go to Kumasi yourself. I will find a way to get you the Kweko. She stopped him. Her voice was very still. And leave my mother in this hunger? With no one? I can't. She is selling you. She is my mother, Ama said. And those 4 words carried more weight than any bridge could hold. That was the tragedy of Ama. Her love for her mother was the cage her mother built around her. The wedding was set for the next full moon. The night before the wedding, something happened that no one in Nkabom ever fully explained. Ama sat alone at her loom, weaving one final cloth for herself. Not for sale, not for a husband, just for herself. And as she wove, she wept. Her tears fell onto the thread and the clothes changed. The pattern that formed was nothing she had designed. It was a great tree, roots deep and branches wide. And at the crown of the tree, a single bird in flight free, wings full open. The village diviner, old Nana Adua, happened to pass by. She stopped. She stared at the clothes for a long time, and then she walked directly to Abena's door and knocked. What she said inside that room, no one heard, but those outside said Abena's voice rose and fell like a storm. And when Nana Adua left, Abena sat in her doorway for 3 hours without moving, without speaking. The next morning, the morning of the wedding, Abena called Ama to her. Ama came, already dressed, eyes dried. She had decided to accept her fate, but her mother's face was different. The calculation was gone. What was there instead looked old and raw and terrified, like a wound that had finally been opened to the air. Ama, her mother said, I have done a terrible thing. Ama said nothing. I told myself it was for us, for survival. Abena's voice broke, but the old woman showed me. She showed me that I was cutting away, not just your future, your gift, the thing the ancestors placed in you. She covered her face. I was so afraid of being poor that I made myself something worse than poor. I made myself someone who destroys sacred things. The silence between them was enormous. Then Abena stood, straightened her clothes, and walked to Kofi Mensah's compound herself. She returned the bride price. She stood in front of him, a woman with nothing but her backbone, and she said, my daughter is not for sale. Kofi Mensah was furious. He told everyone in the village that Abena had shamed him and threatened to ruin her name in the market. And for a season, life became very hard. No one bought from them. The compound felt like the loneliest place on earth. But Kweko came every day, and other young people of the village came too. Sitting with Ama, watching her weave, learning from her hand, Ama began to teach. Words reached Kumasi, then Accra, then further. Within 2 years, Ama's weaving were known across the region. Mam Akwasu, the woman who ran the weaving school Kweko had spoken of, came to Nkabom herself to find Ama. She didn't bring an offer, she brought a partnership. Ama built a workshop in Nkabom. She trained 23 women in the first year. She named it after her grandmother's laugh and her mother, Abena. Abena walked beside her, not as a manager, not as an authority, as a student, learning at first to be proud of a gift instead of afraid of it. They were not rich, not immediately, but they were whole. And that, the elder said, is wealth that cannot be stolen. There is an Akan proverb that said, Onipa na ohia onipa. A person needs another person. But this story teaches something that Proverbs alone does not say. A person must first believe that the person beside them is worth more than their price. Abena loved Amma. Don't doubt that. Fear does not cancel love, but fear can make love blind. Blind to the sacred things it holds, blind to the damage it causes when it grips too tightly and too desperately. And how many mothers, how many fathers, how many elders have looked at the child light and thought, what can this get us? Instead of, what can this become? The twist of this story is not that a mother was evil. The twist is that she was human, hungry and afraid, and making the only calculation she knew. The miracle, the real miracle, was that she stopped. That she chose, even at great cost, to return what was not hers to sell. That is harder than it sounds. To admit you were wrong, to give back what you took, to stand in front of a powerful man with empty hands and say, not this, not her. If you are a parent, remember Abena, not as a villain, as a warning and a second chance. If you are an Amma, remember, your gift does not belong to anyone's fear, not even the fear of someone who loves you. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of someone or something inside yourself, then you already know why African folk tales matter. These are not just old stories, they are mirrors. They show us who we are, who we've been, and who we still have the chance to become. If you are new here, welcome. This channel is your home for stories that have survived centuries because they carry truth that doesn't expire. Subscribe so you never miss a story. Drop a comment below. I want to know, did this remind you of someone in your life? Have you ever had a future nearly sold by someone who loved you or by your own fear? Tell me. Listen, and if you know someone who needs to hear this story today, a young person, a parent, a friend, share this video with them, because sometimes the most powerful thing we can do for someone is simply say, listen to this, it's about you. Until next time, stay rooted, stay free. Bye for now.